Hi everybody and welcome to another video. My name is Richard Seidlitz, aka TLM01, and I'm the owner of Redpants.lol. It is a rather rainy day outside. It's been just coming down like crazy, so hopefully you can hear me over the downpour. But what I'm doing today is I'm going to show you how to remove the brake calipers from an Aston Martin. The brakes are pretty much the same across the board. The only ones I can think of that might be a bit different are the carbon ceramic brakes. The calipers may be a bit different. I've actually never worked on those brakes before. I've only done the standard steel ones, and those are all pretty much the same thing, so it's nice and easy. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm doing this on Andrew's DB9. We're actually going to be making these into a copper color, which is going to be really cool. It's going to stand out nicely compared to the rest of the car. But this, like I said, this is the same on pretty much any Aston Martin and pretty much any car with this these Brembo calipers, and most calipers are pretty similar anyway. Once you know how to do this, it's pretty straightforward. This is all you need to do it. You need to have a 10 millimeter hex bit. You can see it looks like a bolt, but it is a bit. It's a 10 millimeter with a ratchet to go with it. You need an 11 millimeter line wrench. It has this opening here, so you can slip it over the brake line in order to loosen the nipple on the end of that brake line. I use these rubber caps. You can get them in packs. There's a whole bunch of them. You don't need anything special, but they're just vacuum caps. These are going to be to block off the end of the brake line. That way it's not dripping once you've disconnected it. And we also have to be, we need to do the brake pads as well, because they have to come out in order for the caliper to come out. So we're going to have the tools to do that. That's just a punch pin and a hammer. And then, of course, my handy dandy flathead screwdriver that I use for everything. In this case, I used it to pop the rubber cap off of the bleed nipple because the brake sensor is attached to it. So you do need to be aware of that. So first things first, safety, safety, safety. Get the car off the ground. If you're doing one side at a time, no big deal. I'm going to have the car up on jack stands for a whole bunch of work. So as you can see, I've got all four corners up. Next thing, you want to take off the wheels, obviously, because those are in the way. And once we've done that, we can go ahead and get started. So if you remember the procedure to remove the brake pads, all you do is punch out one of the pins and pull out the other side. While you're pulling it on this other side, you have to be careful of the spring clip that sits in here. And it is under tension. Once that first pin comes out, this thing is going to launch out. So you want to have your hand on this while you're pulling the pin out. Once it's out of the way, you can push out the other one, and that'll expose the brake pads. You can push those, basically grab onto the top of it and push it into the caliper on each side, and that will push it in and make it loose so you can pull them out. Andrew still has the brake pad sensor on his, so be cognizant of that. I tried using a big word and I kind of failed there. Be aware of it. There we go. These do break pretty easily. I know mine are broken on my car. They were broken before I bought it. Just, you know, don't blame me. But these can break, so be very careful of them. Then once the brake pads are pulled out, you can go ahead and start working on the caliper. So the caliper is held in place by two large bolts. Once these two bolts are out, the caliper falls free. So what we're going to do first is we're going to remove the brake line. Once this starts getting loose, you need to be aware that it is going to start dripping fluid, which is why I have a drain pan down here. Have the vacuum cap ready to go to put on this. You need to also be aware that these have paint markings on them. You want to make sure that these line up when you reinstall everything, or you can get some leaking. The brake system is under a lot of pressure, so you want to make sure that you are very careful with everything involved. So be aware of, or cognizant, if I got it right that time. See, I got it right that time. Be aware of the paint markings on here. Those are there for your benefit. So you can help, to help make sure everything gets lined back up properly. As soon as this is off, this is going to be that 11 millimeter wrench. So as you can see, you can put it over the end like that, and then you can slip it on. That's the whole point of that. And because it still wraps around enough, you don't have to worry as much about slipping and ruining the end of this bleed nozzle, the end of this brake line, because once that gets messed up, you now need a new brake line. Luckily, they're only this long. So once that's off, we can go ahead and cap that. That'll prevent any more draining. The only other thing you need to do is remove these two bolts. So there's one here and then one down here, which I've already removed to make this nice and quick. And like I said, it's just that 10 millimeter bolt. Let's see if I can arrange this. Hopefully that's lined up. But once it comes out, you can see the whole thing comes free. So while I have this caliper in my hand, I can show you everything about it. So this is that entry port for the brake line. This is where it screws in. This is where fluid will come out, so be aware of that. Inside, and this is why you can see that this is a 4-piston caliper, is there's 2 pistons here and then 2 pistons over there. That adds up to 4. You can also see it on the outside. That's why it has this shape, is because this contains those pistons. So this is the whole system. Pretty simple. You know, bleed nipple, the pistons, the inlet for it. There's nothing really crazy about it. It's nice and straightforward. It's super easy to work on. But as you can see, the caliper is now off the car.